Revealed, how an incredible mafia boss transformed a single mom's life in one touching moment. Emily dabbed at her forehead with the hem of her worn cotton apron, squinting through the diner's haze of frying oil and strong coffee, trying to keep the anxiety at bay. Outside, the sun hung low on a weary Midwestern horizon, casting a fading light over the chipped paint of the diner's sign that read, "Patty's Place." Simmering beneath her forced cheerfulness was the looming shadow of bills, ones she couldn't pay, ones that seemed to pile higher by the minute. And there was Ethan, only 8, battling an illness too big for his small frame. Each day, she needed to wear a smile for her children, hiding the desperate thoughts that churned inside, let them see the fight in her, the love that would never waver. As she poured a cup of coffee for old Mr. Jenkins, the bell above the door jingled, signaling a new customer. A figure walked in, the kind that made heads turn. He was sharply dressed, something rare in this neck of the woods, and not at all the regulars she was used to. Tony, the local mafia boss, with a swagger that felt as familiar as breathing but certainly not welcome. The room fell silent as he scanned the diner, eyes piercing through the clatter of silverware. When he approached her counter, Emily's heart raced not from fear, but uncertainty. One misstep, one wrong word, could unleash a tempest. She had seen what his reputation could do to those who crossed him. Horror stories whispered between the slices of pie and side orders of fries. Just as she felt the weight of the world pressing in, a moment of misfortune struck, and she raised her hand too swiftly, spilling hot coffee all over his crisp white shirt. Her breath caught, the world tilting under her feet. Strangely, laughter rang from his lips instead of fury. "It's coffee, not poison," he chuckled, wiping at the stain with a faint grin. Shocked by his reaction, part of her started to soften, the tension in her limbs uncoiling just enough to remember the warmth of connection. She found herself drawn into a conversation with him, the relentless grind of her worries momentarily set aside. Their exchange was a small refuge from the bleakness of her daily struggles. For a fleeting moment, she glimpsed the fire within him, how he masked his troubled world behind that charming exterior, just as she did. It was a glimpse of their shared vulnerability that felt almost surreal. But then the weight of existence crashed back down. Before they could dive deeper into talk, he offered a lifeline, an intriguing proposition to work for one of his legitimate businesses. The allure of a stable income, of reduced burden, was intoxicating. Yet trepidation seized her thoughts. What kind of world was he offering? She could picture the judgment of the town, the whispers of how she aligned herself with someone like him. But behind her hesitation was her fierce determination as a mother. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her mind raced, imagining a life where she wouldn't have to stretch each dollar, where Ethan could just be a kid and not worry about hospital visits. Yet, was it worth the price? She felt caught on the edge of a precipice, each breath sharp with the knowledge that choosing wrong could entangle her further in a life of shadows. Just as her resolve began to harden, the phone in her pocket buzzed violently. Damning news. She glanced at the screen, heart sinking. Ethan's condition had worsened. The barometer of her life began tipping further into chaos, leaving her teetering between integrity and the desperation of survival. Would she have to reach out to Tony? The line between morality and pragmatism blurred, leaving Emily grounded in uncertainty, fighting for her family's future while the shadows closed in around them. Emily's fingers trembled as she stared at the phone screen, the gravity of Ethan's condition weighing heavily on her heart. The message from the hospital was simple yet devastating: further tests were needed, and another bill would soon land on her doorstep. Her mind spiraled into dark thoughts. What more could go wrong? She longed for a solution, a way out of the suffocating closeness of her financial hell. She glanced back at Tony, still perched on the stool, casually flipping through the menu as though he had all the time in the world. A calculated smile crept onto her lips, masking her troubling thoughts. She could either keep the coffee warm for the regulars or confront the truth of her reality head-on. There was something in Tony's easy demeanor that suggested he was more than just a figure of fear. "Tony," she finally said, fingers gripping the counter, "you mentioned a job." The words felt foreign as they left her mouth, as if she was stepping into an unmarked territory filled with unknown consequences. He looked up, interest flickering across his sharp features. "I could use someone trustworthy," he said, his voice low and measured. "Someone who understands how to handle a business, especially during tough times." A part of her was repulsed by the offer, conjuring images of underground dealings and back alleys. Yet another part, the part of a mother fighting tooth and nail for her child's future, could sense the glimmer of opportunity that nestled beneath the surface. "Trustworthy isn't the word I'd use to describe myself," she countered, deflecting vulnerability. "I'm just a waitress." "Are you?" he asked, his expression shifting. The weight of his gaze felt as heavy as a stone. "Or are you more? I saw how you handled that spill. You didn't flinch. You took control." Her breath hitched. In that moment, she felt seen, not as a beleaguered single mother, but as someone capable, someone who could emerge from the murkiness of her struggles like a phoenix rising. She considered his words as the air crackled with tension. What would I be getting myself into? The question slipped from her lips, fraught with trepidation and curiosity. "A chance to make your own way," he replied, leaning closer. "You've got grit. I respect it. I need someone like you on my team for my upcoming cafe venture. It's clean, it's legal, and it pays well." With each word, Emily could almost envision the life he described: the steady paycheck, the chance to breathe, and possibly a future for Ethan that didn't involve worrying about the next medical bill. She could feel the remnants of fear taking form, leading her to a mental fork in the road. Questions bubbled in her mind, halting any immediate decision. Could she trust a mafia boss? What would the town say if word got out? Yet those thoughts were eclipsed by the haunting need for stability. For Ethan's sake, she couldn't afford to let pride deny her the help she craved. "Let me think on it," she managed, though she knew deep down that this was an opportunity not easily dismissed. As she returned to serving tables, part of her mind lingered on the conversation, the choices now tangling like threads in a knot. Each potential path was laden with risks, yet the familiar call of necessity pushed her toward Tony's world, blurring the line of right and wrong further than she ever anticipated. She spotted Ethan through the diner window, laughing with a friend, oblivious to the burdens threatening to engulf her. Bolstered by a newfound resolve, Emily replayed the moment when she first met Tony, how laughter had diffused an impending storm. Could she harness that unexpected moment and transform her own life? The desire that ignited in the pit of her stomach drove her forward, though the walls of uncertainty loomed large. As she locked eyes with Tony one last time before his departure, she knew a decision awaited her, one that would not only affect her life but the lives of her children as well. With every potential outcome eerily close at hand, the question remained, was she ready to navigate this new maze? And as she served dinner to the last customers, a chilling thought struck her. What if seizing this opportunity would tether her to a darkness she could never escape? The next day dawned heavy with uncertainty. The worn diner walls echoed with the chatter of regulars and the clatter of dishes, but for Emily, the hum of familiarity felt foreign. Her thoughts spiraled around the conversation with Tony, his steady gaze, the unexpected offer. Could she really step into a world she barely understood? She wiped down a table, feeling the wood grain beneath the cloth, abrasive and real. It grounded her amid the chaos swirling in her mind. Each swipe was therapeutic, a moment to assemble her scattered thoughts. The weight of her situation sat squarely on her shoulders, pressing down with the promise of another hospital bill looming just out of sight. As lunch rolled in, familiar faces filled the booth. Mrs. Jenkins, a retired schoolteacher, sat in her usual corner, always accompanied by the scent of peppermint. Today, Her warm smile failed to reach Emily's heart. "Emily, dear. You look a bit pale. Everything all right?" Mrs. Jenkins's concern was genuine, but Emily felt the urge to mask her truth. How could she share the reality of her life, her worries, her burdens? "Just a busy day, I suppose," she replied with a practiced smile. "Just see to yourself, too." Mrs. Jenkins chuckled, drawing her own cup of tea. The exchange slammed the door on deeper conversation, yet each word carried the weight of community, echoing back to Emily as she popped into the kitchen to refill her coffee pot. "Hey, Em." Michelle, her colleague, called, her voice lifting the tension momentarily. "I heard about Tony's new cafe venture. You think he'll actually turn the place around?" "That's the hope," Emily replied absently, her heart racing. "Careful, though. You know those guys come with strings attached," Michelle warned. Emily nodded, feeling the pull of curiosity mingle with trepidation. She sensed Michelle's perception of Tony wasn't entirely flawed, the undercurrent of danger resonated. But what would it mean for her? More bills, more pressure, or perhaps a lifeline she couldn't let slip away? By the end of her shift, the sun hung low in a crimson sky, and the diner emptied out, leaving behind only the distant clinking of silverware and her racing thoughts. Any hesitation about Tony's offer began to drown in a tide of desperation, yet every step home pitted her against the cold reality of risking it all for a chance at stability. That night, as she tucked Ethan into bed, his little face relaxed into sleep, she felt a rush of determination. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door of her bedroom and grabbed her phone, typing a quick message to Tony. "Can we talk?" The silence of the room seeped in, echoing her expanded resolve. She replayed her words and each sentiment thrummed in her mind. Was she ready to dive into an unknown world? What would it mean to be part of something larger, something that demanded more than just her presence? With her heart hammering, she stepped to the window, gazing into the bustling night beyond, where dreams battled against shadows. Seconds later, her phone vibrated in her hand. It took only a moment to read his reply, but it brought a surge of both excitement and dread. "Meet me tomorrow evening at the cafe. We can discuss everything in detail." An unsettling thrill coursed through her veins. This wasn't just a plan, it was a catalyst for transformation, her life on the verge of a drastic change. And just as she feared, this door was swinging open to a world shadowed with the unknown. But could she really handle what lay behind it? As she settled into bed, the lingering question turned her anxieties into questions of her capability. Emily wondered, who would she become if she accepted his offer? And in that moment, a firm resolution crystallized. The time had come to face her past and to define her future, no matter how obscure the path. The sun dipped behind the clouds, casting long shadows over the streets as Emily made her way to the cafe. Each step felt monumental, a blend of excitement and fear. She had spent the morning oscillating between confidence and self-doubt, staring at the message on her phone as if it could provide answers. What exactly was she stepping into? The cafe loomed ahead, a cozy facade that hid a bustling world within. Yet, Emily hesitated at the door, her heart racing in protest. Could she truly navigate this new terrain? The thought of failure gripped her, but an equally powerful sense of ambition stirred within. She needed this. She pushed the door open. Inside, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the rich scent of pastries, an invitation that was hard to resist. Tony stood behind the counter, his easy charm on display as he greeted her with a warm smile. For a brief moment, it felt good to see him. Yet, she couldn't shake the tightness in her chest as she approached. "Thanks for coming," he said, gesturing to a table set in a quiet corner. "Of course," she replied, taking a seat. The moment felt heavy, laden with unspoken words. "Listen, I want this cafe to be more than just a place to grab coffee. I envision it as a community hub, a place where people feel they belong," he said, his expression earnest. "And I think you could play a key role in that." Her mind raced to think of his words. Could she be more than just a waitress? She had spent years sidestepping opportunities, letting self-doubt dictate her path. But here was someone believing in her potential not just as a worker, but as a leader. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, allowing herself to delve deeper into the proposition. "I need someone who understands people, someone who can connect with others on a personal level. You've been so good with the customers at the diner, and I can tell you have a knack for it," he explained. "You could manage events, help create a welcoming atmosphere. There's potential here, Emily. You could define what this place stands for." His proposition rattled her. Did she dare to think of herself as anything beyond what she'd known? The weight of her past pressed down fiercely. But there was also a flicker of hope that felt like propulsion, blurring the line between fear and excitement. "What if I fail?" she challenged, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "Failure is part of growth. But if you don't try, you'll never know." "I see something in you that maybe you don't see yet," he replied, his gaze unwavering. The conversation shifted as Tony laid out his vision for the cafe: community outreach, events promoting local artists, and fostering connections. It was a whirlwind of ideas, each one resonating with the deep-seated desire within her to belong and contribute to something greater. Suddenly, Emily felt a rush of clarity. This was her moment of reckoning. She could redefine her narrative, step out of the shadows of doubt brought on by her circumstances, and actively shape her future. But even as excitement curled within her, the enormity of the commitment loomed overhead. "I'll need time to think about it," she finally said, a hint of uncertainty wavering in her voice. "Take all the time you need, but I want you to know that you have what it takes," he assured her, the warmth in his tone wrapping around her like a blanket. As they parted ways, the thrill of the discussion was overshadowed by a lingering terror. Was she truly capable of stepping into this new role? And if she accepted, what would it mean for her? The gnawing question hovered over her: could she relinquish her fears and embrace this opportunity, or would she crumble under the weight of responsibility? With each step home, Emily battled the contrasting forces within her: fear of the unknown set against an incandescent drive for growth. As she opened the door, the familiar surroundings of her small apartment felt immeasurably distant from the world she might enter. Tomorrow, she would have to make a decision, one that would affect not just her life, but Ethan's as well. Would she leap into the cafe's potential, or would she retreat into the safety of routine? As she prepared for bed, Emily's heart raced with the gravity of the choices ahead. What kind of life would she create for her son? And thus, she grappled with the inevitable truth: stepping into the light meant confronting the darkness that had plagued her for far too long. In that moment of solitude, the question crystallized: would she rise to the challenge, or would she fold beneath the weight of her fears? The morning sun spilled into Emily's apartment, casting shadows over her cluttered kitchen table, remnants of last night's thoughts littering the surface. As she sipped her lukewarm coffee, she stared out the window, watching children chase each other down the street. A part of her longed for that simplicity: a life defined by joy rather than the crushing burden of decisions. Yet, the stirring energy from yesterday's conversation echoed within her, taunting her to respond. That potential Tony saw in her, buried under layers of doubt, began to feel more like a whispering promise. She thought of Ethan and the kind of life she wished to provide for him: a life not marred by her own fears but infused with the strength she could muster. With a determined exhale, Emily reached for her phone. The weight of reaching out to Tony felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The message she typed addressed the opportunity she had been mulling over all night. "I'm ready to discuss your ideas for the cafe," she sent, watching the screen for signs of his reply as if the outcome could rewrite her entire day. The response came quickly, affirming her willingness to take that pivotal step. They decided to meet in the coffee-scented warmth of the cafe later that afternoon. It felt like stepping onto a stage with no script, every part of her pleading to retreat into familiarity. As the hours stretched between her decision and their meeting, Emily couldn't shake the anxiety coiling in her stomach. She ventured through her morning routine, performing tasks as if on autopilot. Making the bed, loading the dishwasher, and planning Ethan's lunch while her mind whirled with questions. What if Tony's vision reached far beyond her comfort zone? Would she merely be a sounding board or a key player in a game she didn't fully understand? Arriving at the cafe, the world buzzed with anticipation, each sound heightening her senses. The warm light seemed to wrap around her, intensifying her apprehension. Tony saw her before she could fully compose her expression, waving her over with that familiar encouraging grin. "Glad you could make it. I've been thinking about our conversation," he said as she settled into a seat. There was a new urgency in his eyes, a hint that he had crafted an even larger vision since their last talk. The dialogue shifted rapidly as he unveiled his ideas for what could be an artistic showcase of local talent alongside freshly brewed coffee. "Imagine a space where art ignites conversation. We could host nights dedicated to storytelling, music, even cooking demonstrations. Your role would be crucial in curating it all," he proposed, the excitement in his voice igniting something deep within her. Curating, the word resonated more than she imagined. It felt like a call to action, a chance to weave her own narrative into a larger fabric. But with excitement, doubt tightened its grip. The enormity of the responsibility appeared like an insurmountable mountain peeking from behind a veil of clouds. "What if it overwhelms me?" she asked hesitantly, half dreading and half needing to hear his response. "Then we tackle it together, one piece at a time," he countered. "You won't be alone in this. You'll find a way, and I'll be alongside you every step of the way." The camaraderie sparked within her, slowly dismantling the wall of fear she had built. But it left her confronting the reality of her own limitations. What skills could she bring to a space meant for creativity and connection? As Tony continued to expand on his ideas, Emily realized this venture was not merely about managing events, it was about shaping an environment that fostered growth, for herself and others. The conversation felt infinite, rushing forward into realms she had never ventured before. In that whirlwind of possibilities, Emily began to visualize herself participating in a community she had longed for, suddenly seeing threads of her past, the relationships built on borrowed courage and fleeting connections. It dawned on her that this was not only about the cafe, it was a chance to redefine her identity and create a legacy for Ethan. As framing her thoughts became more of a challenge, she caught a flicker of the time. The afternoon light dimmed, inviting a web of uncertainty back into focus. As she listened to Tony's enthusiasm, Emily emerged at a crossroads of ambition and self-doubt. Suddenly, a new thought flashed through her mind: what would Ethan think of this transformation? Could he see his mother as someone who dared to stand tall amidst uncertainty? The stakes had raised higher than she could have imagined. "Let's set it in motion," she said, sealing her resolve in a moment of sheer will. The weight of her affirmation settled over them, but so did an unshakable awareness of the journey ahead. Emily found herself standing at the brink of a vast unknown, challenging everything she'd known about her limits. But as Tony smiled in reply, a new question echoed in her mind: how would she navigate the complexities of creating a welcoming haven while still balancing her personal life? With fear still gnawing at her, Emily glimpsed the horizon of her potential, a future shimmering just out of reach. And she couldn't shake the sense that the real challenge was just beginning. The days that followed were a cacophony of new experiences and inner turmoil. Emily found herself juggling the rhythms of motherhood with the emerging responsibilities Tony had outlined. Her initial excitement was tinged with trepidation, every small victory was haunted by the looming shadow of her own doubts. In the quiet moments late at night, when the world dimmed and Ethan was safely asleep, Emily wrestled with the vast array of tasks ahead. She dove into research. Every cafe she visited was a source of inspiration, each artistic coffee shop a catalyst for her ideas. Still, every time she sketched out plans, she felt a twinge of anxiety grip her heart. Would her contributions be worthy? One afternoon, she sat across from a community bulletin board in a nearby cafe, her thoughts circling around the many ways creativity could intersect with connection. What if she held a themed artwork showcase? This could be a way to unite talents and creativity, but how would she attract the right artists? The questions pressed on her mind, intertwining her professional aspirations with her personal insecurities. Ethan's laughter anchored her in reality, his delight in the simplest moments a stark contrast to her whirlwind thoughts. He had taken to exploring art in his own way, finger-painting bright swirls on canvas, where each splash of color seemed to carry a piece of his innocence. Watching him created a flicker of peace in her otherwise chaotic narrative. "Mommy, look!" Ethan shouted, revealing his latest masterpiece. In that moment, something inside Emily uncoiled. His delight reminded her that art wasn't just about professionalism, it was about passion. If she could channel that exuberance into her cafe project, maybe she could transform her fear into something tangible. With renewed determination, Emily reached for her phone while seated at the table. She sent Tony a text suggesting a brainstorming session where they could explore concrete ideas for the project. Almost immediately, his enthusiastic reply struck her like a spark in the darkness. They settled on a time to meet, and she felt the familiar pulse of nervous excitement again. As the meeting approached, she found herself crafting a list of potential ideas for the cafe. It served as a grounding exercise, forcing her to articulate visions she had been hesitating to voice. This strategy overwhelmed her at first, the best idea danced just out of reach. But the deeper she delved into her thoughts, the more clarity emerged. On the day of the meeting, the cafe felt more like a sanctuary than a battleground. Emily took a moment to absorb the ambience, the gentle hum of conversation mixed with the aroma of freshly ground coffee. It was comforting yet invigorating. When Tony arrived, she noticed a flicker of anticipation in his gaze as he considered the groundwork they had to cover. She initiated the conversation with purpose, presenting her ideas with a newfound confidence. Together, they dissected each suggestion, tossing around possibilities and weaving threads of collaboration. The exchange was exhilarating, each suggestion she made resonated, not merely as a transient whisper but as a foundation for something greater. Yet, as the meeting unfolded, a lingering thought gripped her: what did success really mean? Was it merely about executing a perfect plan, or was there something more subjective at play? Each question folded inward, stirring a realization that success could also mean allowing herself to be vulnerable, to embrace the uncertainty that swirled around her. When Tony voiced how much he valued her insights, she felt the walls she'd built around herself momentarily bow before the weight of his words. It was a reminder: she was not merely a participant for Tony, she was creating her role in the narrative of her life. As they wrapped up the meeting, the flicker of doubt ignited again. What would her next steps be? How could she harness this growing idea into a manageable reality without losing herself in the process? Emily left the cafe invigorated yet anxious, the shadows of her internal conflicts chasing her like ghosts. The newfound ambition was a double-edged sword, it was both empowering and paralyzing. Just as she stepped outside, the gentle hum of the cafe fading behind her, a thought cut through the haze: was she ready to break the last vestiges of her comfort zone and be the architect of her own narrative, crafting a legacy not only for Ethan but for herself as well? The unease danced beneath her skin as she embarked on this evolution, a journey that demanded bravery she had yet to fully summon. The path ahead shimmered with possibility but loomed ominously at the edge of self-discovery. As she took a deep breath, the question hung in the air: could she continue to embrace the unknown, forging ahead into the depths of her own ambition? Emily's breath was steady, but her heart raced as she made her way home. The vibrant energy of the cafe lingered in her veins, merging with the echo of Tony's praise. It was a potent combination, making her question whether she had relied too much on others' validations in the past. As she opened the door to her apartment, the mundane surroundings felt heavier, reality darkening the high of ambition. Ethan babbled on about his day, oblivious to his mother's internal struggle, and she forced herself to focus on him. In that moment, she wondered if his uninhibited joy was an unconscious reminder that the essence of success might not rest solely on the perfection of her project but could also lie in authentic engagement with her journey. She paused, blinking away the self-doubt that had been creeping in. After dinner and nighttime stories, Emily sank into the couch and reflected on her options. She had gathered a handful of ideas, yet something was still bothering her. Was she simply overlaying a facade of creativity where deeper issues lurked? Thoughts of inadequacy returned unbidden, sliding into her mind like shadows creeping into the light. How could she expect others to believe in her vision when she struggled to believe in herself? That night, sleep evaded her. Instead, she rummaged through her sketch pads and old notebooks, dusting off forgotten dreams that had been shelved away since motherhood had swept in. She rediscovered half-finished art concepts and unfinished poems, pieces of herself that had laid dormant. Her heart quickened as she realized these scraps embodied the very essence of passion she feared was missing in her entrepreneurial plans. They were raw, unrefined, but they were hers. In the early morning, a thought took root. She wouldn't just host an artwork showcase, she would curate it based on a theme of personal transformation. Artists might be more attracted to the idea of expressing their stories than to merely showcasing art. It resonated with her own experience of redefining herself amidst societal and familial expectations. Fueled by a newfound enthusiasm, she constructed a mental vision of the venue, a space filled with narratives, not just paintings. Over the next few days, she sought to refine her thoughts strategically, still using the cafe as her creative home base. The air buzzed with potential and unvoiced possibilities. Emily booked more brainstorming sessions with Tony, each meeting a symphony of cascading ideas that solidified her emerging concept. However, as the project began to gain traction, a conflict simmered unnoticed beneath her developing vision. When she finally invited artists to submit their works based on personal stories, she encountered pushback. Some deemed it too personal, overly intimate for a cafe setting. The resistance shook her confidence. Perhaps they were right. Maybe she was simply chasing shadows of an ambition that wasn't feasible. Then one afternoon, an unexpected encounter jolted her from her reverie. While grabbing a latte, she found herself face to face with an old art school classmate, Mia. The two had shared ambitions once upon a time but had since drifted apart. Mia's success in the art world shone like a beacon, and Emily's heart sank. Was Mia's path what she had wanted? Was she now falling short? Yet, rather than retreating, Emily confronted the urge to shy away. She shared her project idea with Mia, tentatively at first. Instead of scoffing, Mia's eyes lit up, recognizing the potential in Emily's vision. Art is transformation, Mia said, her voice warm. People need to hear the stories behind the canvas. They want to connect. Emily's thoughts spun as inspiration surged within her. Still, an underlying current of fear tugged at her mind. What if her theme wasn't just bold, but reckless? As the raw possibility surged, so did the anxiety of being seen or is it being judged. Each moment with Mia cemented Emily's internal battle. Could she confront the fears that had shackled her for so long? As she parted ways with Mia, a question lingered: did she have the courage to reach out for deeper connections and bear her own vulnerabilities? Stepping back into the cafe, under the familiar warmth, she contemplated her approach. Would boldness or fear guide her decisions going forward? The cafe hummed with life, mirroring the growing tempest within her. Would she choose to defy the expectations that had long held her captive, or would she recede back into a shadow of herself, never fully realizing her potential? Taking a deep breath, she grasped the edges of her sketchbook tightly, her pulse quickening. In this creative battleground, a revelation was brewing. Could her moment of reckoning be on the horizon, waiting to reshape everything she thought she knew about success? Emily awoke to the sounds of the city waking around her, the distant hum of traffic blending with the soft chirping of birds outside her window. Yet, the familiar noise offered little comfort. Instead, it sharpened her focus on the decision she had to make. Today marked a turning point. Either she would yield to doubt, or she would press forward with her concept for the showcase. She swung her legs off the bed, determination igniting in her chest as she prepared for the day ahead, feeling an unsettling exhilaration. As she entered the cafe, the luminescent glow of the sun poured through the large windows. It cast a warm hue on the tables where people leaned into their conversations, laughter blending with the rhythmic sound of espresso machines. Emily took a seat at her usual spot, her sketchbook toying with her fingers. This was her space, a crucible where ideas ignited, where she could shed her doubts and focus entirely on her vision. She was scheduled to meet Tony again to discuss the feedback she had received from the artist's submissions. As she waited, Emily scribbled furiously, crafting a structure for how to navigate the challenges she faced. Every line drawn on the page felt like a tentative step toward reclaiming her artistic identity. Yet, shadows of uncertainty lurked behind the bright ink. What if the theme of personal transformation turned people away even more than before? Would it alienate her audience instead of attracting them? When Tony arrived, his enthusiastic greeting offered her a glimmer of reassurance. As they delved into the criticisms, she deflected any thoughts of despair. Some artists saw her vision as too personal, but others had embraced it wholeheartedly. Maybe you need to lean into that discomfort, Tony suggested. You could highlight the importance of vulnerability. It's what connects us. That perspective ignited something in her. They began brainstorming ways to present the project, focusing on artists who had already overcome adversity. Each idea sparked her resolve, and she experimented with methods to infuse narratives comfortably into the cafe space. But deeper contemplation didn't allow her peace. As the conversation wrapped, she paused, meeting Tony's gaze. What if I'm not the right person to lead this project? What if people think I'm foolish for suggesting such an ambitious theme? Her voice trembled despite her efforts to appear composed. That's where the magic happens, Emily, he replied, his tone firm yet supportive. Transformation isn't just about art, it's about courage. You have to believe in the story you want to tell. Walking home, the day felt longer than it should, each step weighing heavier on her mind. Breathing deeply to find clarity, she thought of Ethan, his boundless enthusiasm. How could she instill the same sense of wonder in herself as she pursued her dreams? If she succeeded, it wouldn't just be a win for her, it would be an opportunity to inspire him, to show him the bravado of following his passions. Later that evening, Emily found herself sitting cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by all those long-buried sketches and drafts. The energy in her apartment felt different now, almost electric. Each piece resonated, echoing her journey toward authentic expression. As she flipped through the pages, fragments of her past entwined with who she aspired to be. She couldn't ignore the doubt, but now it felt less suffocating. Instead of seeking approval, perhaps she needed to communicate her vision with conviction, to harness her vulnerability as an asset rather than a weakness. Momentum buzzed through her, and she felt a flicker of bravery that had long eluded her. That night, she set herself a challenge, to draft an open letter to the participating artists, encouraging them not only to share their artwork but also to pen their stories courageously. Just as the adrenaline surged through her veins, a late-night notification pinged from her phone. An unfamiliar name appeared. Mia had messaged her, curious about how her project had progressed. Emily hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. Would she risk vulnerability now, opening the door to someone who had become a mirror of her past ambitions? Could this moment be yet another pivotal change, or would it reiterate the doubts she had fought against? With her heart pounding, she began to type a response, realizing that confronting her fears would be the true measure of her growth. As she hit send, Emily held her breath, both excited and terrified by the unfolding possibilities. Would Mia provide the encouragement she sought, or would she unearth deeper insecurities? The answer lay ahead, shrouded in unpredictability, a journey with layers yet to be revealed. The notification sat like a stone in her gut as she stared at the sent message. Emily felt the world weighting on her shoulders as she paced her living room, glancing intermittently at her phone. A response from Mia could change everything. This was a crucial moment, its weight palpable. After a few minutes of silence, her phone buzzed again, and she seized it, heart racing. The response was quick, but vague, a simple acknowledgement of her update followed by a question. Mia wanted to know if she could come by the cafe for a face-to-face chat. The anticipation of reconnecting brought to the surface emotions Emily thought she had buried. Unease mingled with excitement. She'd long admired Mia's artistic prowess, yet she was haunted by the nagging fear that she would be judged, that her vision for transformation might not measure up. In the morning glow, she sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, the steam warming her hands as she turned Mia's invitation over in her mind. This was not just the opportunity to share her project, it was a chance to lay bare her vulnerabilities in front of someone who had once inspired her. But could she do it? Could she expose herself again after so many setbacks? She pulled out her sketchbook, hoping to ground herself in creativity, but every line felt forced. Anxiety crept in, twisting her thoughts. Who was she to open up about transformation when she had struggled so much herself? Could she truly inspire artists to share their stories while she avoided confronting her own? Determined not to stall, Emily drafted an outline for their conversation. The cafe needed to be a safe space, a sanctuary that fostered bravery. Wasn't this exactly what she had hoped to achieve? She wanted to cultivate an atmosphere where stories could flow freely, colored by the pain of struggle and the sweetness of victory. After the initial pangs of doubt subsided, she felt a surge of determination. This meeting could be about collaborative strength, building something beautiful from their shared experiences. If she was truly going to embrace her project, she needed to step out of the shadows of self-doubt. This was her chance to become the leader she yearned to be. As the clock edged closer to their meeting time, Emily's composure wavered again. What if Mia saw through her facade? What if she couldn't articulate her vision or connect on the level she hoped? Arriving at the cafe, she caught sight of Mia looking up from a corner table, her expression a blend of curiosity and warmth. Emily's heart raced, the sights and sounds around her blurring. With each step toward Mia, doubts threatened to drown her confidence, but she reminded herself of Tony's advice about vulnerability. This was not a performance, but rather an authentic moment to share experiences. "Hey, thanks for coming," Emily greeted, forcing a smile that felt both genuine and practiced. As they exchanged pleasantries, she felt the atmosphere shift, an unspoken understanding settling around them. Mia leaned in, attentively listening as Emily described her vision and the concept behind promoting personal transformation through art. Emily's voice grew steadier with each word, her passion buoying her as Mia nodded thoughtfully. After Emily finished, Mia took a moment, eyes glimmering with reflection. "What do you fear the most about this project?" she asked, her tone gentle but probing. Those words hit Emily like a bell tolling in an empty space. The fear of inadequacy, the fear that her vulnerability could be misinterpreted had been lurking just beneath the surface. With resolve, she opened up about her doubts, discussing the times she felt unworthy to lead others. Mia listened intently, and Emily felt a strange, invigorating mix of honesty and liberation. They moved beyond the surface of small talk, forging a genuine connection. It was there, seated across from one another, that Emily realized she was not alone in her journey. Mia shared her own battles, years spent trying to reconcile her artistic ambitions with personal losses. A tapestry of struggles unfolded between them, each story reinforcing the sense of shared experience. With renewed fervor, Emily saw potential not just for her project but an opportunity to learn and grow alongside others who felt just as deeply. But as they began to discuss potential collaborations, Emily caught a flicker of doubt cross Mia's face when they spoke of sharing personal stories. Was this an uncharted territory for them both? Would they commit to this fearless exchange, or would the weight of hesitation tether them back to their insecurities? The critical moment loomed, each of them standing on a precipice of openness, both eager and apprehensive about their next steps. In the midst of this dialogue, an unexpected message from Tony appeared on Emily's phone. It read, "I've just had a thought about the project, meet at the cafe later today." A sense of urgency pulsed through her as she weighed her response, feeling the day teeter on the brink of significant change. She could embrace this newfound synergy with Mia or take the safe route by diverting her attention back to the looming meeting with Tony. The crossroads awaited her decision, an invitation to dive deeper or retreat back to familiar safety. Would she choose to risk it all for growth, or would old habits pull her back? Emily stood at the intersection of courage and hesitation, the weight of her choices circling like vultures overhead. The invitation to explore deeper connections with Mia contrasted starkly against the pressing urgency of her meeting with Tony. Each option pulsed with significance. She felt the shift in her gut urging her to select something bold. With a slow exhale, she made her decision. She thumbed a response to Mia, proposing they meet later in the week to further discuss their ideas. Then she turned her focus to the cafe and to Tony, understanding that this venture could reshape not only her life but the lives of countless others struggling to share their stories. Walking back into the cafe later that day, a newfound resolve fortified her confidence. The welcoming atmosphere buzzed with life, familiar faces drifted from one table to another, the hum of conversations anchoring into her heart the sense of community she had yearned for. When Tony approached, his expression radiated excitement, signaling that he sensed positive momentum in her energy. "I love that you're embracing this project fully," he said, gesturing for them to sit together away from the bustling patrons. "I spoke with Mia," Emily began, eager to share the details of their connection. As she recounted their conversation, something shifted within her. She felt a sense of purpose emerging, a vision that wasn't solely about art but about community, vulnerability, and shared experience. Looking into Tony's eyes, she realized she suddenly held authority over her narrative. She wanted to position the cafe as a place that fostered growth, creativity, and transformation. When Emily finished outlining her refreshed vision centered around vulnerability and courage, she hesitated, awaiting Tony's response. "That's the essence I saw in you from the start. You're not just a participant, you're becoming the architect of this space," he affirmed, a genuine warmth in his tone. In that moment, Emily felt the veil of self-doubt lift. It wasn't only a job, it was a path toward empowerment, not just for her, but for others who reflected her struggles. Tony's validation was more than mere encouragement, it served as a catalyst for her transformation, solidifying her newfound identity. As they immersed themselves in discussions about logistics, brainstorming artists, curating exhibits, and organizing community outreach, Emily's confidence surged. The weight of uncertainty began to dissipate, and each problem they solved felt less daunting, bringing forth tangible steps that would build the cafe she envisioned. Days grew into weeks, the cafe blossoming under a rhythm of creativity and connection that invigorated all involved. Each artist that showcased their work brought their essence into the space, and the aura of vulnerability transformed walls into canvases of growth. With every showcase, Emily experienced not just the fulfillment of a dream but a vibrant realization that all the fears she once harbored only served to deepen the richness of their collective stories. On the day of the inaugural showcase, Emily stood in the cafe, enveloped by the scent of fresh coffee and the murmur of expectant conversations around her. Ethan, laughing and playing with a friend in the corner, embodied the joy and innocence of childhood that her efforts were dedicated to preserving. This moment was no longer just about her, it was about building a legacy of resilience. As the crowd gathered, Emily took a breath, her heart pounding softly with anticipation. She stepped into the center of the room, ready to embrace the vulnerability she had long shunned. Speaking to the gathered guests, she shared how art serves as a mirror. We reflect strength and fragility, and through this depiction, we can connect and heal. And as the evening unfolded, she witnessed the deep impact of that connection. Artists shared their stories, reflecting the struggles they faced and the triumphs they could claim. Each tale echoed through the cafe, binding everyone together, nurturing an atmosphere that celebrated raw honesty. In this vibrant tapestry of lives brought together, Emily found her personal fulfillment. She had transformed from a beleaguered waitress into an empowered leader, a curator of stories, dreams, and hope. Her journey had not merely forged a new path but had armored her spirit against the forces of doubt she once found insurmountable. And in that moment, her heart brimmed with the truth. She was no longer seeking permission to exist, she had carved her niche, demonstrating that even amid uncertainty, her authenticity could blossom into profound impact, creating ripples far beyond her own narrative. As the evening waned and laughter filled every corner, she recognized that the journey did not end here, it expanded infinitely. Emily smiled, triumphant, savoring the sweet taste of victory, confident in her path forward. It was time to embrace the next chapter, and her life, once carved out by struggle, was now defined by courage and boundless possibility. Now, this is the moment for you to get involved. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait even one more second to show your support for incredible personal overcoming stories.